Springfield's Talk 1041. Hello, good Monday, friends. Welcome to the show. My name is Nick Reed. Streaming live, KSGF.com, YouTube. You can find us, Springfield's Talk 1041. And then, we do the podcast thing, which is, of course, the show itself, minus usually, I think, there aren't commercials in there. Those get edited out when it comes to the podcast. So any other show that you missed or you want to share stuff, you can do that from KSGF.com. We've got the podcast on Spotify, iTunes, all of those standard places where one might find one's podcast. Numerous events taking place over the weekend, Friday as well. Joe Biden popping back up, much to the dismay of Democrats. Bill Clinton doing a sit-down interview with CBS, and he's still clinging to Joe Biden was perfectly fine. The acknowledgement that Joe Biden was what all of us who observed him to be actually, was. We were all right. You got, of course, Tapper and the Axios journalist, whose name I always forget, that, have written this book, and, it's filled with quotes from other Democrats, and so it's like all out there now. So it's really unusual to me to see that there are still some high-profile Democrats, Bill Clinton the latest, still clinging to this, no, he was perfectly fine. Oh, I never saw anything. I mean, it's just, there is such a complete lack of direction within the Democrat Party right now. The fact that you still have Joe Biden out there. We'll play some audio of him rambling on and demonstrating once again why it is that he is not good for Democrats. You have Democrat strategists. We've got audio of that saying, no one seems to be telling this guy to go away. You know what I would really like to see? If Biden would do an interview. And he does get asked about the book. That's some of the audio that we have. There's this book out. And in it, there are some Democrats who say that you should have dropped out earlier. And it's very vague. I would really like for Joe Biden to respond to specific instances listed in the book involving specific people. I don't believe he has had to, or he's been confronted with that. Again, the sort of broad allegations or the broad description of some Democrats say that maybe you shouldn't have run or you should have dropped out earlier. But, there have been so many very specific allegations that have come out, about him forgetting the names of specific people. Like the George Clooney situation, for example, where there was the fundraiser, George Clooney, whom he had known for a long time. And I mean, everyone knows who George Clooney is anyhow, and just had no clue who he was. Which evidently, according to the book, is really what prompted George Clooney to write that op-ed piece saying that he needs to step aside. I would ask Joe Biden about that. Specifically, George Clooney says, at this particular fundraiser, you did not know who he was. What do you say about that? Is that true? Those are the sorts of questions that, to me, again, not a journalist, but I would want to ask the guy. And the opportunity's there. He again on Friday talked to reporters, and he was asked a number of different questions that, again, in a broad sense about Democrats claiming that he should have stepped down earlier. But why not ask about very specific instances to get his reaction? Because here's the thing. I imagine he has no idea about the specific allegations in that book. Who is it that he is surrounded by that's going to tell him? I suspect he's not, visiting outlets that are covering it to a great extent. This is a guy that we also know from the book, among other things, that he was being lied to about polling numbers. While he was out there, he would talk about, well, I'm beating them in the polls. I'm doing this in the, poll. This was before he had to drop out. And you may recall I think it was Trump. Maybe it was Trump. And what poll are you talking? Or somebody? There was some exchange in which there was a pushback, and he was claiming that in all of the. It may have been one of that one debate where he talked about how he was winning in all the polls, and it couldn't be further from the truth. Well, he genuinely believed it because that's what he was apparently being told. And if he can be so detached from what was actually going on because of the people who were surrounding him and lying to him while he was president and coming into contact with so many different people, to me it seems that it's probably even easier now for him to be insulated from the reality of what's going on in the world. And the allegations in that book, specific allegations that involve specific instances and perhaps people, it would not surprise me if he's just completely unaware of what's in there. And that's yet another reason I think it would be. I mean, if you're going to ask the guy questions about it anyhow, I know there's this whole mantra from the Democrats that, well, we're going to be moving forward. Well, fact of the matter is, there's certain things that you don't really get to just move forward from without some sort of, I don't know, rectification of things, making good on it. You don't get a get out of jail free card and say, oopsie daisies, let's just all move on. And so, I get that obviously is what the Democrats want to do and what the media wants to do. But it just seems to me that these are great questions to ask when you have a microphone in front of the president to find out if he even knows what's in this book and to get his thoughts on it. Coming up, there was, if you're just waking up yesterday, you may or may not be aware of this, there was an attack on a number of individuals in Boulder, Colorado, that were gathering in order to bring attention to the hostages that are still being held by Hamas in Gaza. And an Egyptian national who apparently was in the country illegally, he had come on a visa and it expired, decided to light a bunch of them on fire, trying to kill them while screaming about freeing Palestine and killing Zionists and so forth. Now, despite all of that particularly, his declarations of freeing Palestine, that was immediately known. He was on video. Video was circulating as this was occurring. And so the FBI, of course, comes out and says what is obvious, this is being looked at as an act of terrorism. And so, of course, what do you get with the mainstream media? They go bend over backwards criticizing the Trump administration for contradicting the Boulder police who say they don't know what's going on. Don't you understand? You're not supposed to contradict. The FBI is supposed to, apparently, according to the Democrat-run media, they are supposed to also act like they have no idea what the motive could possibly be. Just have head in the clouds in order to show solidarity with the local Boulder police. So we'll have some of the audio and all the latest revelations on that as well. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line is 417-447-KSGF. Latest news update.
And the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 85. And looking ahead to Wednesday, a 70% chance of showers with a high near 76.
Suspect in Boulder terror attack determined to be an Egyptian man in the U.S. illegally. This, according to the FBI. You know, it is amazing the difference in response and transparency from the previous administration to this one. And before the sun even sat, you were getting statements from Kash Patel, you were getting statements from Kristi Noem, you were getting statements from Dan Bongino. And this isn't the only incident. Anytime during this administration there's been any sort of incident that has occurred that there is a need for a response on a federal level, you have just before the sun sets on that day, proactively getting information out there. And you think about the previous administration, and generally when an incident occurred that required, at the very least, the federal government to say, hey, we don't have a lot of information yet, but we are on top of it. This is what we are doing in response. They would be so absent, it would sometimes take weeks for them to respond, and only then it was because they were berated into it by Republican and even media saying, where is Pete Buttigieg on this? Where is the president on this? Where is the head of Homeland Security on this? Whichever department would be relevant at the time. And it was an administration that just refused to acknowledge when there was something that definitely needed acknowledgement. And it is one of the real deep contrasts between the previous administration and this one, and that is how it is that they just really demonstrate we are on top of this. We're taking care of this. Now, the arrest of the individual, and this isn't a real difficult one. There's video of the guy. And he's openly talking about free Palestine. He's yelling at people. There's not a lot of real gray area as to what exactly occurred here and what the motivation of the individual was. Mohammed Sabri Soliman, 45, arrested at the scene after setting people on fire as they peacefully rallied on behalf of Israeli hostages still being held by Hamas in Gaza. Soliman was heard yelling Free Palestine and other anti-Israel slogans during the attack on victims ranging age 52 to 88. Online records show that Soliman has been booked into the Boulder County Jail on multiple felony charges, including 1 count of explosives or incendiary devices used during a felony and 2 counts of first-degree murder. The circumstances surrounding the murder charges unclear since authorities have not announced whether any of the victims have succumbed to their injuries. Soliman is being held on a $10 million bond. Shocking violence unfolded at 1:26 p.m. local time when Boulder police were called to the county courthouse on Pearl Street for reports of a man who had a weapon and was setting people on fire, according to Boulder Police Chief Steve Redfern. The attack took place near an event put on by Run for Their Lives, a grassroots group that organizes run and walk events calling for the release of Israeli hostages held since October 7th, 2023, according to the Anti-Defamation League. So pretty straightforward stuff here. I mean, the attacker wanted to make sure everyone understood where he was coming from and what he was doing. But there's this instinct that the left has to, it's such a weird thing because it's almost as if they're trying to defend the reputation of terrorists. When an event like this occurs, and you have, in this particular instance, the FBI saying, yeah, this is being looked at as a terrorist attack, the instinct, and I'll play some audio here, is to, like, now let's not jump to, this is reckless to blame this on terrorists. Like, what is this instinct to defend terrorists? What is it, like their reputation that the media is concerned is going to get sullied when they carry out a terrorist attack? It is the weirdest thing, yet they do it consistently. This desire to make sure that you don't jump to any conclusions and just assume that a terrorist is behind this. That's wrong, you see. Now, the Boulder police had come out, and of course, Colorado is increasingly very liberal. They're all into the DEI CRT. This is the state that had the Secretary of State tried to throw Trump off the ballot, in which the Supreme Court unanimously said, yeah, you can't do that. They're just very progressive. So I don't think it's any huge surprise that immediately with the Boulder police coming out, despite what we had known at that particular point, this is somebody that was yelling about Zionism, yelling about Free Palestine, that the Boulder police are still like, well, now we don't want to jump to any conclusions here. The FBI, however, now, much, much different FBI than existed just a year ago, being run by different people, saying, yeah, this is being investigated as a terrorist attack. There's just enough evidence at this point for us to recognize that maybe this is terrorism. Here's the discussion regarding that on MSNBC.
Chief comes out and says, we don't have 2 + 2 = 4 yet. In other words, this is obviously an anti-Semitic attack and the victims were obviously part of that group. Therefore, we're not calling it terrorism. It adds a lot of it's not good for the community. It's not good for the potentially targeted community. It makes law enforcement look disorganized, and it makes the FBI look so juvenile. Like, why are you getting ahead of the police chief who says, I don't know what this is. It sounds, maybe it is what we all think it is, but maybe it's not. And he has no incentive to get it wrong. So we're going to take a step back, not be responsive to tweets by two heads of the FBI who don't have a long history in local law enforcement. And we will wait and hope it isn't what we all worry it is. And if it is, then there'll be an investigation. But that's like nothing I'd ever seen before. You normally Andrew knows this, you normally get the local people getting way ahead on motive and the FBI saying, we don't have it yet. You now have the opposite here. And until we know that the victims were members of that of the Jewish event, we don't have the nexus. And I will believe the Denver police chief that they do not have that nexus now. And if they do, I will be the first one out here saying that that is a hate crime. But until we do, we all need to not follow the FBI's tweets.
It'd be nice to say this were an unbelievable take from MSNBC. Now, even if part of her premise here is, now we don't know that every single one of these people he lit on fire were actually part of this organization. And so until we know that, well, we know that he thought they were. There's video of the guy walking around shirtless with Molotov cocktails screaming about free Palestine and killing the Zionists. I mean, so if, this idea that, well, if there was somebody in there that just, happened to be mistaken identity or wasn't officially part of the organization, that means it wasn't a terrorist attack. This, again, is the Trump derangement syndrome, in which this sick, unattended to psychological problem the left has to just, it doesn't matter what happens. How can we turn it to criticize Trump or the Trump administration? This isn't really a very difficult thing to understand or to recognize. Here you have elderly people fighting for their lives because they were burned deliberately, that are clinging to life, their families. I can't even begin to imagine the level of pain and agony. And they're over there on MSNBC or CNN, whichever the two, because they both are cut from the same cloth. Their concern is that, well, the FBI may make the Boulder police look like they don't know what they're doing, because the Boulder police says that they don't know what the motivation is for this, while the FBI is saying, well, we're investigating this as terrorism because of what we know so far. That is their grave concern. These people are vile. They are disgusting. And the fact that it develops itself into a media outlet here essentially defending the reputation of terrorists, or attempting to do so, by saying you can't go around blaming terrorists this quickly. Now let's not jump to conclusions here. It's just unfair. It's just not right. It's something like I've never seen before, she declares. It's just automatically, so quickly, begin to blame terrorism. What is your deal? Well, it's not about defending terrorists. Then what is it? Because usually when you have a certain category of person and evidence indicates that they are the bad guy in a situation, the people who are they're defending, they don't want you to mischaracterize an entire grouping of people because, you're just making this sort of assumption, right? That this is usually what their defense, that it's unfair, that it might unfairly paint an entire community because of the action of one. And so if that's not what they're doing when it comes to terrorism, then what is it that they're doing? These people are just weirdos. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed. Pinnaker Honda, just south of Walnut Lawn and on Campbell, 0.99% financing, select certified pre-owned Hondas. What a deal that is. Low rate for pre-owned vehicles. Brand new Honda CR-V hybrid, 2.99% financing. They do have the new 2025 Honda Ridgeline truck. A brand new truck as low as $44,430 with 1.99% financing available. And it's graduation time, college grad, celebrating with Honda. You can get $500 towards the purchase of a Honda for graduates. They have all the details on that as well. And then don't forget, of course, during this period of time, at Pinnaker Honda, every new car purchase, you enjoy free gas all summer long. You can, of course, stop by their location there on South Campbell, just south of Walnut Lawn, or get more details under Nick's endorsements at ksgf.com. This clear terrorist attack against individuals that clearly were perceived as either being Jewish or at least pro-Jewish comes on the heels of, once again, fake news reports that the Israelis lured innocent, hungry people from the Gaza Strip out of hiding with the promises of aid only to open fire on them. Now, as usual, this is a Hamas-created story, but what does the media do? They run with it as if it's absolutely true. It is yet another disgusting and depraved display of the media acting as the propaganda wing for Hamas. And when you have just a day or two later a terrorist attack on individuals that are perceived as being Jewish or pro-Jewish while, screaming about how many civilians have you killed, which is some of what he was yelling. These fake news reports, the media acting as a megaphone for claims from doing the propaganda of Hamas does not occur without consequences. It will be interesting to see if this individual that carried out the terrorist attack, if he even does talk, if he was motivated specifically by these false reports. I'm going to get a traffic update. Springfield's Talk 104.1. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 85. And looking ahead to Wednesday, a 70% chance of showers with a high near 76.
Father's Day coming up. Your chance to win for, you can win it for yourself if you're it's not like we're really going to check anyhow. But the idea here, the theme is for dads. You can register to win a round of golf for dad and 3 of his friends at one of the Big Cedar golf courses. You can get all the details and get yourself registered or your dad registered or a dad registered at ksgf.com. All right, now let's talk about this fake news that is yet again propaganda straight from Hamas. There's a straight pipeline from Hamas to Western media outlets that then, without question, report it as if it's true. And this is nothing new. We first really saw this on a significant scale with the false reports that the Israelis had deliberately bombed a hospital and killed all of these innocent people. And the media could not get in front of a camera fast enough in order to, without question, report it as if it were true. Now, what we would learn is that it wasn't the Israelis, it was Hamas, and one of their rockets accidentally hit the hospital, and it was the garage at that. Fortunately, not as many people died as initially reported. And the media ran around talking about how it is they're going to do better. Well, those were lies. Because they have spent every day since then reporting the propaganda from Hamas, usually when it comes to the body count. CNN and BBC ran with fake news pushed by Hamas that claimed yesterday that dozens of Palestinians were killed at a U.S.-backed humanitarian aid site in Gaza, according to evidence released later in the day. Hamas claimed that more than 30 Palestinian civilians had been fired upon by the Israeli Defense Forces at one of the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation aid distribution sites. So this is what we're supposed to believe, that along with the help of the United States, the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation was delivering food and aid to people that are living in Gaza, and then decided to open fire on them, killing 30. Now, you may ask, why on earth would that even be done? Well, because Jews are evil, of course. That it was all just a setup, coordinated with the United States of America, in order to just kill those from the Gaza Strip. Now, if you're the BBC and CNN, that seems perfectly logical to you, so you report on that. The IDF released a statement saying in recent hours, false reports have been spread, including serious allegations against the IDF regarding fire towards Gazan residents in the area of the humanitarian aid distribution site in the Gaza Strip. Findings from an initial inquiry indicate the IDF did not fire at civilians while they were near or within the humanitarian aid distribution site, and that reports to this effect are false. The IDF is cooperating with the American Civil Organization and international aid organizations in order to enable the distribution of aid to the Gaza residents and not to Hamas. Hamas does everything in its power to undermine food distribution efforts in the Gaza Strip. Hamas is a brutal terrorist organization that starves and endangers the population in order to preserve its control over the Gaza Strip. As part of its brutal behavior and its attempts to disrupt humanitarian aid, Hamas directly harms the residents of Gaza. The IDF calls on the media to be cautious with information published by the Hamas terrorist organization, as proven in several previous incidents. IDF also would release a statement that included drone footage showing that it was Hamas firing upon civilians. And this is what they do. This isn't anything new. And here's the irony of it. The people, CNN and BBC, who I'm sure fancy themselves caring the most about these civilians, help create the atmosphere that endangers their lives. The reason those civilians were killed by Hamas was because Hamas knew that Western media would go around, that Hamas then says, oh, look what the IDF did, and they know that outfits like the BBC and CNN will just repeat what they tell them. That's why those people get killed. This is exactly why Hamas has always hid missiles near elementary schools or daycare nurseries. This is the exact reason that they deliberately put their own people in harm's way, because they know that the media will blame it on the Jews. And they can go so far as to take a humanitarian effort, open fire on people from Gaza, just pick up the phone and tell their contacts at CNN and BBC, by the way, the Jews did it, and they know that they'll go straight to the camera in order to report it. And that's exactly what they did. By the way, the reason that the GHF has decided, and this is something the Trump administration has backed, is circumventing the United Nations, is because what we've learned since October 7th is that the United Nations was filled with people that coordinated with and assisted in the terrorist attacks. And everyone knows that the United Nations has, at best case scenario, turned a blind eye, but in all likelihood deliberately assisted Hamas by giving them the humanitarian aid, which they utilize and have utilized for themselves, and then they sell the rest on the black market and use the money in order to purchase more weapons that they can use in order to kill their enemy. And so the Trump administration, I know this is crazy, their number one priority, along with the IDF, is to actually make sure that the civilians in Gaza get the aid that they need. This is another one of those upside-down circumstances where the individuals, it's the United States and the Israelis, are the ones who are desperately trying to actually help the civilians, while it is Hamas that, yet again, is trapping them in this absolute hellhole and then using them as propaganda by killing them, knowing that Western media will portray it as the Jews. The Jews are behind it. A source with the GHF noted that it's extremely disheartening that Western media outlets have repeated fabrications without verification, adding that the GHF has distributed 4.8 million meals in just 6 days. 4.8 million meals in just 6 days. You see all of these calls to free Palestine. The only way the Palestinians will ever be free is when Hamas is gone. Hamas is the institution, the people, the culture that is imprisoning the people in that particular part of the world. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, the Pyramid Roofing Company. We have a rainy week ahead of us, and if you experience any type of roofing problems, whether it be leaks or drips, yellowing on your ceiling, or maybe your gutters are just struggling to keep up, remember Josh and his team over at the Pyramid Roofing Company. Now, the Pyramid team, they offer emergency tarping services if you do find yourself with a major roof problem, and they also offer free roof inspections. And with that free roof inspection, they take tons of photos and videos so you can see exactly what they see, and then they come up with the best solution for you and your home. Sometimes that doesn't mean a whole new roof. Maybe that means just a simple roof repair. Either way, the Pyramid team, they're going to get you all taken care of. So if you do experience any type of roofing issues, give Josh and his team a call today. You can find all of that contact information under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
The continued excusing normalization of attacking Jewish people in the across the world, but in the United States, as the anti-Semitic culture has seized some control of the Democrat Party. And while they may not be completely directing the Democrat Party, they have crafted this environment which Democrats will not condemn them. At the very least, what will occur is what we saw the governor of Colorado, that, the broad brush, well, we condemn all violence. They will not specifically call out those who are targeting the Jews. They won't do it. They will not call out those who are masquerading as wanting to free Palestine as a way to try and finish what Hitler started. They won't do it. And we see it continue to pop up in many ways. A commencement speaker accused MIT of being part of wiping Palestinian from the face of the earth Thursday, leading multiple students to walk out. Megha Vemuri, MIT's class of 2025 president, praised her classmates for protesting against Israel in the wake of the terrorist attack against Israel. Quote, last spring, MIT's undergraduate body and graduate student union voted overwhelmingly to cut ties with the genocidal Israeli military. You called for a permanent ceasefire in Gaza, and you stood in solidarity with the pro-Palestinian activists on campus. You face threats, intimidation, and suppression coming from all directions, especially from your own university officials. Her comments drew a mixture of boos and cheers. According to video obtained by Fox News Digital, one of the attendees waving what appeared to be a Palestinian flag scuffled with security. Some students walked out as Vemuri spoke. Others in the crowd shouted shame. This is, it's unfolded before our very eyes. The combination of critical race theory, DEI, and a Democrat Party that caters to this culture. I mean, it's something that many of us have noted. It is not going to get better as long as the Democrats continue to refuse to fight back against this. It has a home in this country. I think it was Marco Rubio had put out on X something about terrorism has no place in this country. Unfortunately, it does feel it has a place within the Democrat Party. And now, there may be a number of Democrats who say that's unfair, that's not true, but the fact of the matter is that this is where the vacuum is. The deafening silence. When these individuals, these types of individuals, when our policy is, if they are not an American citizen, our policy is to take these people who promote violence against Jewish people, and the policy, as stated by Secretary of State Marco Rubio, is that we will send you back. When the Democrat Party fights for those people, claiming that calling to exterminate Jews is free speech that belongs to even people from Middle Eastern countries that come over here. You cannot take that position and then claim you're not part of the problem. You cannot consistently defend people who want to wipe Jews off the earth and then claim that you're the ones who are the party of peace. It doesn't work that way. And it's going to come down to some of you, I suspect, Democrat voters. You're going to have to start calling your party people. You're going to have to, or you're part of the problem. And you have to accept that. And maybe some of you have. Speaking of fake news and fake media, you may have seen a story circulating. Oh, they thought they found one. They thought they found the story that was going to show just how evil Donald Trump is. About a little, critically ill 4-year-old girl named Sofia Vargas, originally from Mexico, suffering from short bowel syndrome, and how, despite the fact that the life-saving care is something she's receiving, the evil administration is deporting her. Well, I know this will come as a shock to you. Turns out the story isn't true. More in moments. Traffic update, I'm Nick Reed. Don't forget, The Place. I cannot recommend to any greater extent for taking some of your outdoor area in your home, making an outdoor living space. Hunter Hardscapes and Outdoor, hunterhardscapes.com. Outdoor living spaces, paver patios, retaining walls, sod installation. Maybe you want to do a big garden bed installation as well. Draining solutions, extremely important. Lighting, sound. There is so much that they do, and it is a number of clicks above what you get with most others, whether it is with the designing, the expertise, the quality of product itself. It is above what you're going to find out there and what you may be accustomed to. I would recommend, if you're thinking autumn would be a great time to have this done, go ahead and reach out and get that appointment made now. And there's a bit of a ballpark calculator also if you're wanting a ballpark idea of what it's going to cost you to turn that into your outdoor living space at hunterhardscapes.com, also ksgf.com under Nick's endorsements. The Democrats thought they found one, thought they found the case in order to push back on Donald Trump and his enforcement of our immigration laws. And the narrative that the corporate media and Democrats are on, that this critically ill 4-year-old girl, Sofia Vargas, originally from Mexico, receiving life-saving medical care here in the United States, and the Trump administration is like, we don't care. You're going back and you're going to die. The directing attorney of the Immigration Rights Project, a public counsel, said during a press conference they received a notice weeks after they were given permission to be here in the United States, and a third notice in May verifying they are no longer in lawful status and are now vulnerable for deportation. And the reason that, of course, this would be problematic is because the disease makes it difficult to absorb sufficient nutrients from food to maintain health, and so she requires at least 14 hours of IV nutrients per day in order to avoid possible death. Well, it turns out the story isn't true. The status was revealed by DHS in a statement to The Independent that Sophia is not only not being actively deported, but her family's application for humanitarian parole is still under consideration. So in other words, the status is absolutely no different for this girl now than it was whenever Biden was in the presidency. Oh, they really thought they found one. How disappointed I'm sure they are that this little girl isn't going to end up dying so that they can really have something to pin on Donald Trump. News in 60 seconds. I'm Nick Reed. I want a great homeloan.com if you have any home loan needs, any questions about home loans. These are the folks for you. I've utilized them. Many of you have utilized them. Anthony was on with us Friday talking about how so often people think, particularly if they're a first-time home buyer, that, well, I don't have the 20% to put down. Those days are over. For some of you, you could potentially not have to put anything down. There are certain programs in place that you can benefit from, and whether or not that actually applies to you in your situation, that's what that team is there to help you find out. You don't have to hire them and pay them in order to learn what it is that you're qualified for. That is all part of the service that they offer up. And then if you, of course, decide, yeah, I want to do this, this is right for us, didn't think we could get into a home, thought we had to continue paying rent for the rest of our lives, but actually now we see the way, that's when you can move forward with the team there. And it all starts, their contact info and other information at iwantagreathomeloan.com, because you do. I've decided I'm really very pleased that Michelle Obama is doing all this podcasting stuff, because I believe every time she opens her mouth, she loses a little bit of shine that the Democrats and the media spent so long putting on her. And there was this this sort of, I don't know, fantasy created around her. Oh, she's just so incredible. She's wonderful. Oh, she's so fantastic. And there was a lot of fear that if she ran for president, she would be very, very, very difficult to beat because she's so loved. I think, however, what this podcast is showing us, that it would not have been as easy for her to win as perhaps people thought, because she'd essentially been, she never really talked about just stuff before. You know, she would say things that some of us found controversial, like she was never proud of this country until it nominated her husband for president. But there was still this aura created around her that she's just so wonderful. And you could hear it because that's what people would say. Oh, she's just so incredible. She's so inspiring. Now, if you ask people, well, what has she actually done? The response of supporters and fans, it was generally, well, she's just so inspiring. Okay, but why? She just is. She just is. She was on her latest podcast with her and her brother talking about reproductive rights, and she declared, I'm going to play some of this audio, that having, like, children is the least of what a woman's reproductive system does. Now, I would have thought it would have been like the point, like that's why that system exists, if you will, for that reason. But according to her, that's the least important thing it does. Now, she didn't really list what was more important for reproductive systems to do than reproduce. And like I said, I'm going to play some of this audio coming up. Here's the thing that I believe we're beginning to see if we listen and pay attention to Michelle Obama. She's kind of an idiot. I don't think she's very smart. Her explanation as to this belief she has that the reproductive system's least important thing that it can do is reproduce is pretty Kamala-esque. We'll play that coming up right now. The latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 85. And looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll see a 70% chance of showers with a high near 76.
Former First Lady Michelle Obama recently declaring that creating life is the least of what a woman's reproductive system does.
I'm very perplexed by this.
I know. Hey, let me tell you, my health class evidently failed me. Now, I know I'm not a woman. I just always assumed that was the point of any reproductive organs was to reproduce. But not only is that not the point, but it's like the least important thing that it does. This was the latest episode of the podcast, IMO with Michelle Obama and Craig Robinson, in which is it kind of weird for her to be talking to her brother about this anyway?
Yeah, just a little bit.
All right, here it now. Let me preface this by saying, and I play a bit because I'm like, okay, well, maybe she's going to elaborate on this. I am beginning to think Michelle Obama is not a smart person. That she is perhaps I don't want to say as bad as Kamala Harris because I don't think she's that bad. But the more she talks, the more you find yourself going, wait, what does that even mean?
So many men have no idea about what women go through, right? We haven't been researched, we haven't been considered, and it affects the way a lot of male lawmakers, a lot of male politicians, a lot of male religious leaders think about the issue of choice as if it's just about the fetus, the baby, but women's reproductive health is about our life. It's about this whole complicated reproductive system that does the least of what it does is produce life. It's a very important thing that it does, but you only produce life if the machine that's producing it, if you want to, whittle us down to a machine, if the machine is functioning in a healthy, streamlined kind of way. But there's no discussion or apparent connection between the two.
I mean,
I like how we both just went.
you're a woman.
I mean,
Do you have any idea what she's talking about?
not a clue. It was kind of like that Michael Scott quote, like, sometimes I just, string a sentence together and hope it finds the end, or however it goes.
It does sound like she genuinely has no idea what her own point even is.
The whole point of the reproductive system is to facilitate reproduction.
Well, apparently not. Not according. If that is the least important thing.
And my favorite part was, I guess it was her brother, where he's like, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
These people.
I like how she also she's like, well, I mean, if you just want to whittle us down to machines that make babies. I'm sorry, which party coined the term birthing person?
Yeah, no kidding.
I mean, that instead of you being called a woman, a birthing person, I believe it was in Wisconsin, the Democrat governor signed an order declaring that all government, everything had to be switched over from woman to birthing person.
It's like, how degrading.
This is what I actually think happens here. I think this is someone saying, like, there is this desire by some people to reject the notion that part of life is reproduction because they see it as a way for men to hold women down. Like this acknowledgement that is the whole point of a reproductive system. It somehow means that you're supposed to just do nothing but have babies, and that's your only point in life. That's your only purpose in life. And so there is this desire to separate oneself from the importance and significance of women giving birth. And so she instinctually, because of her emotional belief on that, declares that well, that's the least important thing. But then when she tries to explain it, it is an unexplainable position. It just literally does not make sense to claim that having reproductive organs doesn't mean that that doesn't mean you're supposed to reproduce. That's not what that's for. Well, of course it is. You may not like it. You may not like the way that other people, what they believe that makes you in life, your lot in life. Like you may think that, well, I reject that because some people then believe that all a woman is supposed to do is have babies. Well, you can reject that belief without denying science. But they put the two together. They conflate the two. And so this irrational position that someone like Michelle Obama takes in order to satisfy her ability to separate women from giving birth as a way of rejecting the patriarchal hierarchy that's been set up by men in the world. But then when she tries to elaborate on it, you realize she can't because it doesn't make any sense. It's like claiming that, the least important job of your lungs is to deliver oxygen to your body and your bloodstream. Well, that's just a dumb statement. The least important part of the brain is to make your body function and for you to think. And the least important part of legs is for you to walk around. All of those are completely absurd statements. And so I think that's why she makes that statement. That is a great cheer line for people on the left who think that they're really fighting back against conservatives and these Christians who think that all women are supposed to do is to have babies. And so you go the other, this extreme, if you will, position that's the least important thing. Well, that is insane, and it's ridiculous, and it's why she sounded like a Kamala Harris word salad as she tried to elaborate on it, because it doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But she's just such a smart, inspiring woman, isn't she? So that didn't resonate with you then as a woman?
No, it didn't.
I mean, what? I think she might be an idiot. Can you, how funny would it have been if she did decide to run, if she had, which I've always contended she wouldn't run for president. She thinks she's above it. She loves the trappings of life too much. She gets, what's the best way to put this? Running and becoming president, I don't believe she believes would have added to her wealth any. She already has access to that. I don't believe In fact, she might see that as a window of time in which she wouldn't be able to get money hand over fist like she is able to now. And she loves money. She loves to have money. She and Barack both do. This is, you get the multiple massive homes. She just, hawking anything she can with her name on it. And that love of money, I always believed, was something that would prevent her from ever running for president. But if she had decided or been convinced, and she's got out there and started saying stuff like this, seeing people or trying to grapple with, she is kind of an idiot. Average people. Now, left-wingers, listen. Left-wing Democrat activists convinced themselves Kamala Harris was a brilliant woman and convinced themselves that Joe Biden was as sharp as any other human being could ever possibly hope to believe. So you would still have, and you still do, Michelle Obama supporters, the little cult followers, and it doesn't matter what she says, they'll pretend as if it's the most brilliant thing ever. But there would be that segment of the population that for the very first time would hear her saying things like this and think, what is she even talking about? This doesn't even make any sense. Springfield's Talk 1041, I'm Nick Reed. All right, my apologies. Got distracted, lost track of the fact that it was Monday, what I was doing. Congressman Burleson, kind enough to still join us, since I forgot in the previous segment what I had going on. My head is all mixed up and confused. My apologies. I did want to ask, which is a big question, but we haven't talked to you since, the big beautiful bill, as it's called, and it's because we were off on Memorial Day, and just how you voted, why you voted that way, what you're hearing out there. And it's difficult for people to keep up with exactly what's going on because, are the people against it? Are they against it because it does too much, not enough? Is it a mixed bag? So describe the landscape, if you will, of everything involving that.
Yeah, I think overall, it's the best way to describe it for me is that we're 37 runs. We're playing baseball. We're 37 runs down, and we bunt to get on first base. Okay, yeah. So that's kind of now the question that if I present that to you is, would you take the bunt? Well, right. I mean, ideally, I'd love to have started off with a triple or a home run, but no, you've got to whatever you can do to at least move the ball forward in some small direction, now that being said, so just to put it in context, this for almost a year, myself and members of the Freedom Caucus have been meeting, strategizing, trying to find any way we possibly can to break this cycle that the Republican Party has of doing tax cuts and not spending cuts. And then what happens is the Democrats get in charge, and then they increase taxes and they increase spending. And so when they presented this bill to us in December, it was a $30 billion a year spending cut in order to pay for what amounted to approximately $1 trillion in tax cuts. Okay, so $1 trillion tax cuts getting paid by that measly amount of spending cuts. So what we did is we said once it's all said and done, we have got to get to a point where this is deficit neutral, and so we fought to increase those cuts all the way up to $1.5 to $2 trillion over a 10-year period in cuts, which reconciles over that period of time. So over that 10-year window, we are deficit neutral, if not reducing the deficit. But then the problem became the way in which they had structured it. They moved all of the spending up in the first few years, and then they delayed the savings in the latter part of the years. So this is the weekend going into the vote. Freedom Caucus met again. We stood firm. We told them that we're not going to vote for this unless you move up all the dates of the expirations and the spending cuts. And they did in the final version of the bill. And so that, along with some other concessions and agreements that we got on the final day, I felt like at some point you can't keep moving the goalposts. You've got to take the win where it's at. And as much as I would love to be able to have another chance to fight, now this was the best that we could get. And again, it's a bunt. It's not a double or a triple, but it's the best way we can get to changing this Congress.
All right, so now the Senate, what do you think is going to happen there? Are they going to make some changes? Do you think those changes are going to be problematic?
Yeah, they absolutely are going to make changes. They're going to go through the Byrd rule, which will change the bill in some way. So we know it's coming back. And hopefully Ron Johnson and Mike Lee and Rand Paul were able to stick together. I believe there's one more. But Ron Johnson, if they're able to stick together, then they can hold this bill up and hopefully have a stronger position than the moderates over there in the Senate. Because as you know, there's some of them that don't want to touch Medicaid for political reasons. But at the end of the day, if you care about this country and you care about the fraud that's happening and the abuse, you've got to get involved in some of these programs.
We're talking with Congressman Burleson. Now, adding just to the complexity of all of this in terms of people trying to consume and understand what's going on, there's another spending tackle that needs to come along, because there's the reconciliation, and that's different than yet another one, right?
Right. And so you've got the annual appropriation, and that's discretionary spending. So when we were talking about reconciliation, that's the structural changes to our tax code and tax credits and things that we don't appropriate. So when somebody goes on Social Security, Congress doesn't appropriate that. It just stands appropriated. So that's what they call things that are mandatory spending, part of reconciliation. All of the discretionary happens in the annual appropriations that have to be appropriated by September 30th of each year, and that's discretionary spending. And by and large, a lot of the DOGE effort has to do with discretionary spending. Okay. So we're going to fight to try to get as many rescissions accomplished between now and September 30th, and then set the table for that September 30th and beyond, that 2026 budget, to be as small as possible, hopefully to include as many of the DOGE cuts as possible.
So which of the two reconciliation versus what we're talking about now, is the one that the most meaningful long-term change can come with?
I would say reconciliation,
Okay.
because it can only happen if you get if you get the president, the Senate, and the House. You only then can you do reconciliation. So it's something that, I mean, it's happened because unfortunately the Democrats had all three of those in place under Biden and under Obama. But the Republicans, they had it one chance under Trump. And so it's just politically, the dynamic is it's very difficult to get to the point where you have the ability to do reconciliation. And usually when you do it, you only have one shot at it. And so I think this probably is our one shot, but at least we're able to curb the growth in the government by close to $2 trillion over 10 years.
Anything else before we let you go?
No,
Okay.
It's a beautiful day. I have enjoyed this being in the district, and we did a tourism tour down in Branson with a bunch of the businesses that are important to this area, and went to Joplin for a day and got to have lunch with you.
Yeah,
so
it was a pleasure.
It's been a great week.
Yeah, I enjoy the opportunity to observe interaction with you and just constituents, oftentimes people with different industries, because it really gives a lot of insight as to what's going on with different industries, different people that are dealing, whether it's manufacturing or other areas of business, and it's always very insightful.
Yeah, it's my favorite thing to do.
Yeah.
And so it certainly isn't to travel and being in D.C.
Yeah, I believe you. Congressman Burleson, thank you as always. Appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you, Nick.
All right, take care. Springfield's Talk 104.1. We've got a traffic update, then weather in moments. I'm Nick Reed.
Springfield's Talk 1041, the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 85. And looking ahead to Wednesday, a 70% chance of showers with a high near 76.
You know what today is?
What's today?
It is the second day of the most insufferable month on the calendar.
Oh, yes.
Oh my gosh, here we go.
I know. Yep.
Let the exhaustion begin. Pride Month, where people, to me, it's Narcissism Month. When everyone is supposed to bow down, throw parades, have these acknowledgments just because you're you, whoever you are, whatever the category is. That's narcissism. I've just never seen anything like it. It is the most crazy, insane thing. This demand that people highlight and treat as special, and, it's like, get over yourselves. It's narcissism. In fact, you know what? I went to WebMD and I looked up narcissism.
There you go.
I thought this would be interesting when you think about how there's the demands for the parades, there's the demands for the festivals, there are the demands of, this acknowledgement. Everyone has to acknowledge me for who I am. You have to call me by my preferred this and that. It's all about me, and how wonderful I am. Now, what did you do to be wonderful? Well, nothing. It's just because I'm me. That's what makes me wonderful. And it's exhausting. So here's what WebMD has. Signs of narcissism. Narcissism is still being studied and explored, as many narcissists and people with MPD do not seek treatment, but there are common traits of narcissism, behavior you may be able to spot. Most common signs. Sense of entitlement. Gee, does that possibly fit in here? A common sign of people with narcissism is the belief that they're superior to others and deserve special treatment. They believe others should obey their wishes and that rules don't apply to them. Manipulative behavior. Another common trait of narcissism is manipulative or controlling behavior. A narcissist will at first try to please you and impress you, but finally, their own needs come first. They may try to keep people at a distance in order to keep control. They often exploit others to gain something for themselves. Now, we have seen this largely with threats of boycotts oftentimes from these different organizations trying to manipulate people's behavior, support us, make a donation, wear this emblem, this symbol, in order to show that you're a safe space or that you're an ally. This is the manipulation. You see that in the desires to label certain people as allies. Need for admiration. Another sign of narcissism, according to WebMD, one of the most common signs of a narcissist is a constant need for praise or admiration. People with this behavior need validation from others. Boy, is validation not the word of the day when it comes to this movement? I will not rest until people accept me for who I am. This tethering one's life to the approval from others, this demand that everyone comply with the belief system, and not just comply with it, but celebrate it. And the validation, of course, with the pronouns. I mean, that is on point narcissistic behavior, people that need validation from others. They often brag or exaggerate their accomplishments for recognition. They like to feel appreciated to boost their ego. Lack of empathy. Lack of empathy, a common sign of narcissism. The narcissist is unwilling or unable to empathize with the needs, wants, or feelings of other people. This makes it difficult for them to take responsibility for their own behavior. And I think you see that so often in the behavior that is demonstrated at people that don't necessarily agree with them, have a live or let live attitude. You do what you want to do, and I'm going to do what I want to do, and that is just unacceptable to them. They can't empathize, with the fact that not everyone believes in them or believes what they want to believe, and that's fine. Do what it is that you want to do, but People don't have to comply. And this lack of recognition of that, the lack of empathy for people in this attempt to force them to give up their beliefs, to force them, you see it all the time, that taking a photographer to court, threatening to shut down a bakery because you don't empathize with the fact that they have religious beliefs and don't want to be forced to violate their religious beliefs by participating in something that is against their own religion. There's no empathy for that. It's you must comply, which again is one of those signs of narcissism. Arrogance, another. People with narcissistic behavior see themselves as superior to others. They may become rude or abusive when they don't receive the treatment they think they deserve. They may speak or act rudely towards those they consider inferior. And I'm sure most of you have observed exchanges. Oftentimes they go viral on social media in which you will have on one side somebody who says, hey, a man is a man and a woman is a woman. And on the other side, someone who doesn't agree with that. And which of the two sides becomes the most hostile and irrational? Other signs of narcissism include a sense of self-importance, exaggerating their achievements and talents, a preoccupation with fantasies of success, power, or brilliance, a belief that they're more special or unique than others and should only associate with other high-status people or people with whom they agree, which, those are synonymous in their minds. I mean, it is such a clear cut case of narcissism. By the way, it's not only those that are self-declared members of the community, but allies of the community. Oh, they love to virtue signal. Look how wonderful I am. Look at me. Look at how great. I saw someone posting, there was, Narcissism Fest downtown Springfield over the weekend. And apparently there was someone that had a sign that, and I don't know if it had a Bible, I don't know what it had on it. But someone on the side of narcissism, apparently according to this posting, physically stole it away from the person. And this came to my attention because someone posted about it on social media and said to the person, whomever it was that stole that sign away from the protester, I love you. Oh, well, look how important you are. Look how wonderful and grand and special you are as an ally of the community. Everything about Pride Month is narcissism. The behavior, the expectations, just the belief that someone should be celebrated, not because of anything they did, but because I'm special. That's narcissism. As much as some may want to deny it, pretty much to a T fits the definition. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Pyramid Roofing Company, talk and text line. Nick, you're focused on the wrong things. You're taking a standpoint based on the radicals, and the majority of us are not like that. You're painting an entire community with a brush that should be pointed at the loudmouths that make it onto social media. You really need to talk to somebody like me and get a strong viewpoint on non-radicalized everyday gay people. I think you'd be surprised what our viewpoint really is on Pride Month. Well, if you notice, I was talking specifically about people who participate in Pride Month. I mean, this is, believe me, I know a lot of people that also get that are within the LGBT community that get exhausted by this stuff. I mean, just the non-stop, it gets exhausting, even for people who are supportive of it. And so when I'm talking about the narcissism here, it's about the people who are pushing all of this, me, respect me, my pronouns. This is my, just that sense of, quote, pride when you haven't done anything. Those are the folks that I'm talking about. And by the way, some of these organizations that play into it, it's just the fanboyish stuff we were talking about. Was it all of like Major League Baseball?
Yes.
You said the Springfield Cardinals even had a posting.
They did.
It's like, at some point, and increasingly, it hasn't been at a real high volume, but there is a segment of the population that is LGBTQ that is getting tired of being pandered to as well. And it just, sometimes it seems so obvious, and it's just like, really? I mean, come on already. It's the biggest part of it, I think, for most people, it isn't that those who are tired of it. It isn't that they dislike people in the LGBT community. It isn't that they're homophobic. It's just, I don't care what it is. Anything, whatever it would be. Anything that is promoted to the degree that, quote, Pride Month is, and the way everyone jumps on it, I think it's just exhausting. It could be quilting. It could be stargazing. It could be anything. Just, you can't open up social media without seeing somebody go on and on about it. You can't turn on the television without seeing something about it. Even the video of the terrorist lighting people that he believed to be Jewish on fire. In the background, there was there was a rainbow flag hung from some bill. It's just like everywhere. And it just gets a little, it's just too much. It's just too much. And I fully 100% understand and agree and appreciate that it is not a representation of every person that's in the LGBT community. And everyone that's part of the movement they're not all even LGBTQ plus people. They're allies. So those are the folks that I'm talking about. Not everyone who happens, or not every person who happens to be an LGBTQ plus. So there is a distinction there between the two, like there is with most organizations. I mean, the NAACP does not in any way, shape, or form represent the mindset and belief system of all people of color. You're always going to have a segment of the population that is supposed to be represented by the activists that isn't really represented, and oftentimes, unfortunately, even given a bad name. So, no, I appreciate the text to allow me to articulate that I'm specifically talking about the activists and those who demand compliance among culture and community, and that will not, quote, rest until everyone accepts them for who they are. All right. I will say also, because there's a reference about how what the whole pride deal isn't so much about just proud of me, as the individuals that participate in the pride, but pride of overcoming the obstacles in the fight that was fought. And there was it was a few years ago. I want to say it was a long piece. It was in the San Francisco Chronicle or maybe Rolling Stone magazine. I forget exactly which one. But it was real interesting about how there was a great actual offense taken by what many would consider to be the original fighters for gay rights, the period in the 60s in particular, and those who really did have to overcome great obstacles. And there was this sense that people today are, that they think that they have no concept. People in the LGBT community today have no concept of what it really meant to have true obstacles and the things that were faced, and that there was a bit of a rejection of those who wanted to basically turn it just into, instead of what it was for them. And it was really linking arms and marching in the streets in solidarity, to where they see it as just a big party that people have today, yet somehow think that they have actually had to deal with real obstacles, in which some of the members of that original movement have said, you have no clue, no concept. And there was a real disconnect. I thought it was an interesting article. It's from, maybe 2 or 3 years ago, it seems. I could have been last year even. Every time June rolls around, these issues come up and the articles get written and so forth. Senator Cory Booker, he's in trouble. Did you see what he did?
I did.
He did, or Booker, whatever. He did a Nazi salute.
I wonder if he'll be held to the same standards as Elon Musk.
Of course not. In fact, and the side by side, it's real similar. Real similar. In fact, what was it? Let's see, a quote from his office. Oh, wait. Did I put a couple? Oh, here. So, Booker spokesperson Maya Krishna Rogers told Fox News Digital on Sunday Cory Booker was obviously just waving to the crowd. Anyone who claims his wave is the same as Elon Musk's gesture, is operating in bad faith. The difference between the two are obvious to anyone without an agenda.
Okay.
Yeah, so so it is it's in bad faith to say that Cory Booker was doing the same thing as Elon Musk, but not in bad faith to say that Elon Musk was doing the same thing as Hitler. This is the discrediting nature that, again, we continue to see from the left, that we're supposed to live in a world where it is completely unreasonable to believe that I guess what we're supposed to believe is that Elon Musk is secretly Hitler wannabe and just couldn't help himself. So he was throwing out the Heil Hitler there how many months ago, and everyone knew that. It was obvious. When I saw people on social media posting, you can't claim that this isn't anything other than praising Hitler. Do you know how dumb that would be anyway? You just think about it. If you are really, truly, secretly a lover of Hitler, and like the idea that you would decide to expose yourself out of the blue all of a sudden in front of a huge crowd, and you're like, you know what, this is the moment. I'm going to really show everyone who I am. But then I'm going to deny it. That's just not a human nature thing. It doesn't make sense. And by the way, to that point, of course Cory Booker wasn't throwing a Heil Hitler. No reasonable person thinks that Senator Cory Booker was throwing a Heil Hitler, that secretly he is a Nazi. But the point here is this is the difference, generally speaking, culturally between the left and the right in this country. People on the right are not lunatics that see Cory Booker do this and think, oh, that's proof. Now we know he really is a Nazi. But I think people on the left genuinely let themselves believe that when the exact same gesture occurs by somebody that they hate, that they have suddenly been told this is an awful person, a person that just a couple of years ago, they praised as wonderful individuals saving the planet. All of a sudden, they've been told, no, that's Hitler. And I think they genuinely, their minds get manipulated to the point that they believe it. But you're an idiot if you believe that. You have been brainwashed. And the idea that Elon Musk was throwing a Heil Hitler is just as reasonable as Cory Booker was doing the exact same thing. All right. Let's see. We've got news in 60 seconds. Another hour straight ahead. I'm Nick Reed.
Investigating a horrific attack in Boulder, Colorado, as a case of terrorism. The target of the attack, a group of people who had peacefully gathered in support of Israeli hostages in Gaza.
Witnesses are reporting that the subject used a makeshift flamethrower and threw an incendiary device into the crowd. The suspect was heard to yell, "Free Palestine," during the attack.
The FBI's Mark McCulloch heard there on Denver 7. The suspect identified as 45-year-old Mohammed Sabri Solomon.
White House Deputy Chief of Staff for Policy and Homeland Security Advisor Stephen Miller said in a statement on X, quote, "A terror attack was committed in Boulder, Colorado by an illegal alien." Miller continued, he was granted a tourist visa by the Biden administration, and then he illegally overstayed that visa. In response, the Biden administration gave him a work permit.
Correspondent Bernie Bennett. Istanbul, the scene of the latest round of Russia-Ukraine peace talks. Those discussions now underway.
The Ukrainian Foreign Ministry says the delegations led by Defense Minister Rustem Umerov, while the Russian teams headed by Vladimir Medinsky, an aide to Russian leader Vladimir Putin. Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan is presiding over the talks, and officials from the Turkish intelligence agency will also present.
Correspondent Charles Deladesma says the talks follow a carefully planned Ukrainian drone strike, reportedly destroyed dozens of Russian military planes deep inside Russia. Not every Republican is on board as the Senate prepares to take up President Trump's budget and tax cut bill previously passed by the House. Kentucky Republican Senator Rand Paul says that for one thing, the bill spends too much money. On Wall Street, ahead of this morning's opening bell, the Dow futures are down 105 points. NASDAQ futures off 110. More on these stories at townhall.com.
If you're living with pain, see how Relief Factor can help.
My back got injured very bad. I was off work for about a year. I heard about Relief Factor from my wife. I took it every day, 3 times a day for 3 weeks. Look at her and I said, the pain is gone. And she said, I'm glad it helped. I said, no, you don't understand. It's gone.
Fight pain naturally with Relief Factor. Go to relieffactor.com and get your 3-week quick start today. Only $19.95.
Healthcare is complicated. It doesn't have to be. If you don't love how your health insurance works, maybe it's time to leave traditional health insurance behind. Take charge of your healthcare with Christian Healthcare Ministries. CHM offers you flexibility. Enroll anytime, choose your own provider, and select the program that fits your needs and budget. CHM is the original faith-based way of taking care of your medical bill costs. Learn more at chministries.org/wellness.
For this...
Cory Booker, Democrat senator who once referred to himself as Spartacus, was at an event speaking, and afterwards he had his hand over his heart, and then he threw his arm up in the air. Almost exactly to the way that Elon Musk did it at an event. And so, of course, a lot of conservatives, Republican, Trump supporters are like, oh, look, I guess Cory Booker's a Nazi. The obvious point here is that, hey, what's good for the goose? Now, no reasonable person believes or is actually legitimately accusing Cory Booker of being a Nazi, but they're making a point. Of course, the media, they're presenting, MAGA, Cory Booker responds to accusations. These aren't, they're not accusations based off this real true belief that he is secretly a Nazi. It is to illustrate the point, the absurdity of claiming that Elon Musk was a Nazi because of the exact same physical wave that he did, and also to once again highlight the complete hypocrisy of the media and how the media went on and on and on, covered it as if it was a legitimate thing to believe Elon Musk was a Nazi, but when Cory Booker does it, of course, it's different. It's different because Elon Musk is a Nazi, see? I thought this was pretty funny. Newsweek is covering this. They're on this. What to know? As Newsweek previously reported, video shows Booker speaking at the Democratic Convention Saturday in California. As he finished his speech, Booker put his hand over his heart before extending his hand, fingers open towards the crowd and returning both his hands to his heart. The gesture is similar to the ones made by Musk and Bannon, but not made as forcefully, the video Oh, so that's the difference. That's how you know that Elon Musk and Steve Bannon are Nazis, because they did it more forcefully than Booker did. So, in other words, what they did is they took the two scenarios and tried to figure out, there's got to be some difference. Some difference. Well, Booker, he did it less forcefully, so that's how we know he's not a Nazi while Elon Musk is. The silliness isn't even the right word, but you just look at the way that the media covers this stuff. They're infantile. They're truly infantile. How is it anyone even bothers to turn on any of these outlets or read the articles that knowing how infantile they are? Now, switching gears here, though this story shouldn't be surprising, it is an unfortunate one. FEMA and the White House covered up East Palestine devastation. News Nation actually has this story. After officials burned 5 tankers containing 115,000 gallons of toxic vinyl chloride over East Palestine, residents were sick and crying out for help in September of 2023. 7 months later, President Biden finally issued an executive order sending FEMA executive Jim McPherson to East Palestine to assess the community's unmet needs. But new documents from FEMA, obtained through the Freedom of Information Act, show extensive coordination between FEMA, the Biden White House, the National Security Council, the Environmental Protection Agency, and the Department of Justice, all voicing serious concerns about health, toxins, and the unmet needs of East Palestine following the train derailment. But publicly, their message was that there was absolutely nothing to worry about whatsoever. So you had this coordinated effort of these different branches in the government that are supposed to be there to help, all out there falsely, knowingly falsely, telling the people in that particular area there's nothing to worry about. Remember, they even sent that Jim McPherson guy over there to drink water from a tap. See, look how safe everything is. Everything's fine. No one worry about a thing. You know, this is the sort of thing that the left in particular, not just the left, but people love to point to private companies knowingly poisoning people. And when that occurs, people demand that there be some sort of, that people be held accountability. If it turns out that there's some chemical company that was telling people, hey, everything's fine, you don't need to worry about it, but then subsequently we would learn that they knew, in fact, there was a danger to the people, but they were coordinating to cover it up, people would demand that some of those people go to prison. There'd be massive lawsuits. And leading the charge would probably be some of the very people who were in charge of keeping this covered up and keeping it hidden from the people in East Palestine. Or East Palestine, I think is the way that locally they pronounce it. Leslie Pacey telling News Nation, quote, "It showed that FEMA knew health care was the number one issue." Pacey, an investigator with the Government Accountability Project who sued to get the documents when FEMA refused to turn them over. Quote, "They also knew that they called this plume a really toxic plume. They knew that there would be the potential for cancer clusters. The agency noted the occurrence of cancer clusters is not zero and expressed a need for a tripwire to identify cancer clusters." Pacey added it was only discussed internally, and it actually was discussed all the way to the White House. There's White House officials and National Security Council officials discussing the dangers of the cancer cluster potential and the health issues and discussing whether or not to release the unmet needs report to the public and to the media. They never released the report to the public or the media, and the FEMA coordinator sent here by Biden would not even meet with the residents. Resident Krista Graves telling News Nation, "A lot of us emailed and called that person and never got through eventually. There was something that said that he didn't even need our anecdotal reports." Pacey noted that McPherson was, quote, "nicknamed by residents as the Ghost of October because they were expecting him to be there in October, but never even could get a hold of him." This seems like a pretty explosive revelation. You had these people that were saying they believed there was evidence and they believed that there were signs that there were real problems here and that they were not safe. And this administration, now we know from these emails that were recovered through the Freedom of Information Act, they knew. They knew that these people were in danger and lied to them. And went so far as to send the FEMA director to drink water from a faucet to show, don't worry, everyone, everything's just fine. And like virtually every other just atrocious way of dealing with disasters or anything else from the previous administration, no one will ever be held accountable. None of these people will be. In fact, they'll probably still be invited on some of the major networks to talk as experts in their field if it can be done in a way that demonizes Donald Trump. Latest news update.
And the first alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by St. Clair the Ozarks Home Improvements. Today we'll see sunny skies with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 85. And looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll see a 70% chance of showers with a high near 76.
Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. You've got home buying needs. You've got home selling needs. You have questions about buying or selling. Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty. And I recommend you check her out. And let's say you, in your mind, here's my challenge to you. That's more of a recommendation, not a challenge. Let's say you're like, oh, I know who I want to. I've used this person before. Or, well, I want to give him a shot because it's my, brother-in-law's this or that, or, and we're family, which that to me would be a no-go. But let's just say you want to do that. Before you commit, reach out to Emily Johnson, House Theory Realty, and meet with her. Let her lay out for you what sort of service you will get if she is the realtor you choose. Simple as that. And then you can decide for yourself. You can reach out to her, contact her by finding her on social media, or if, you get kind of lost, is that the right Emily Johnson? Is this the right House Theory Realty? Just go to KSGF.com, Nick's endorsements. You can find her there. All right, let's play some Joe Biden audio, shall we? Let's see here. Oh, I don't have it prepped. Let's see. Here we are. All right. Now, this is after Biden delivered remarks this past Friday. And he was chatting with some reporters afterwards. And one of the reporters asked, not anything specific, but ask or brought up, hey, there's this new book out, and there's some Democrats saying maybe you shouldn't have run, maybe you should have stepped aside earlier, and getting a little bit of feedback from Biden on the latest revelations from the two journalists in this book.
And there's also been a lot of discussion recently about your mental and physical capabilities while you were in office.
You can see that. I'm mentally incompetent, and I can't walk, and I could beat the hell out of both of them.
Do you want to reply to any of those reports, and also to the fact that there are some Democrats who are now questioning whether you should have run for re-election in the first place?
Why didn't they run against me then? Because I'd have beaten them.
Do you have any regrets?
No, I don't have any regrets. Look, there's a lot going on, and I think we're in a really difficult moment, not only in American history, but in world history. I think we're one of those inflection points in history, where the decisions we make in the next little bit are going to determine what things look like for the next 20 years. We've been talking about that for a long time, and I'm very proud. I'll put my record as president against any president at all. You notice the 10 leading presidential historians rated me pretty good up in that list, and the guy I ran against, I rate him the last. So we'll see.
So you had
Watch me.
He loves that watch me thing. This is the problem. Well, it's just clear as a bell, isn't he?
Oh, yes. Sharp as a tack.
I want to play that before I tackle some of what he said here, because there are a few notes, but it wasn't long after that. Laura Ingraham played some of that and then got comments from a Democrat commentator about Joe Biden still out there talking to the media.
12 to 10 historians rated him as great. Dan, he was pushed out of his own party when he had the nomination to be replaced by someone who was abysmally bad. And yet we had it. We had the record. We had it all.
Yeah, it's tough to watch that. I mean, Matt said it. Like, one of the ironies is that as Donald Trump's poll numbers went down earlier this year, our poll numbers didn't go up. And one of the reasons that they didn't go up is that, we are struggling to move forward, and Biden keeps pulling us backwards. I mean, both of you said it. He wants to relitigate this contest. During that speech celebrating Memorial Day today, he once again talked about democracy and this choice we face coming up. We just had an election. And the problem that our party has is there's nobody that can get him to stop doing this, to say, hey, Joe, this isn't good for you, certainly not good for us. He's bitter at Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Barack Obama. The only one who could probably get him to stop is Jill, and she's more bitter than he is. And so what we have is the Democratic Party keeps having to try to defend the indefensible, that he was good enough, and could do it, when everybody knows he couldn't.
Oh, well, that'll lead, actually, let me just go ahead and play this audio as well, to that point that Dan Turnantine, I think I forget his last name. He's a Democrat, and reflecting on, the fact that it's Joe Biden that just keeps, we can't get past this. Everyone knows, we admit it, that he was not cognitively there. Well, that memo did not get, apparently, to Bill Clinton as he sat down for an interview.
Speaking of aging, there's this book that came out that talks about Joe Biden and the people around him seeing that he had cognitive and physical decline. Did you ever have a moment with him where you thought maybe he was unfit to run for president? No.
I thought he was a good president. The only concern I thought he had to deal with was, could anybody do that job until they were 86? And we'd had several long talks. I had never seen him and walked away thinking he can't do this anymore. He was always on top of his brief.
You never saw any cognitive decline?
So I didn't know anything about any of this, and I haven't read the book. I saw President Biden not very long ago, and I thought he was in good shape. But the book didn't register with me because I never saw him that way.
Why didn't you read the book?
I didn't want to, because he's not president anymore, and I think he did a good job, and I think we are facing challenges today without precedent in our history, and some people are trying to use this as a way to blame him for the fact that Trump was reelected.
I've noticed that the closer to death a person sounds, the more likely they are to say they believe Joe Biden was fine. Have you noticed? It's like...
I was listening to him. I'm like, man, he sounds like death warmed over.
I know.
Jeez. Happened to him.
Now, he claimed that he just met with him recently. That's part of what Bill Clinton said. I was just with him recently, and he seemed just fine. Now, I genuinely can't figure this out. Like, why at this point would you still cling to that? I don't understand what the upside would be. I don't... I suppose it's... Is it possible that he really... He can't think that Joe Biden is fine. Yeah, he's old and he sounds old, but he's not blind. And you could almost get a pass from people by, saying, hey, well, in my interaction with him, the times I saw him, he seemed fine, because that's very open-ended. People can, if they want to, believe, well, maybe he hadn't talked to him in a long while. Maybe the moments that he saw him, he was... is like, a long time ago, and it was when he still would have these moments in which he seemed to have it all together. But to add in there, oh no, I just saw him recently and he seemed fine. Like, what is going on with that? Even that CBS report is like, really? So, you're telling us you never, no, I just saw him. He's fine, it's fine. What is the strategy there? What is the thought? Is he so disconnected from what the narrative is that, for the most part, you've got these acknowledgments that, yes, something was wrong with him. Now, you still have, and if you notice, they're usually elected officials that claim they didn't know it. Like, oh, no, last time I saw him. There really does appear to be a couple of camps. There's the camp of people who are talking and saying, oh, yeah, this thing was being covered up. But those aren't elected people. Those are individuals that I imagine feel as if they're always going to have a job and a career and a paycheck in Washington, D.C. in their industry, so it doesn't really matter what they say. But if you're someone like Elizabeth Warren or some other elected official, James Clyburn, and you are worried about re-election coming up at some point, those people try to seem to have it both ways. Acknowledging, yes, well, this appears to be what's going on, but they try to pretend as if they were fooled as well. Like they didn't know also. No, when I saw him, he seemed fine. That's what Elizabeth Warren was saying. And those people are still seemingly trying to protect themselves. But, Bill Clinton, like, what is his game in this? What to claim I just saw him and he was fine? Maybe he is kind of losing it as well. Boy, I tell you what. What now? The original piece of audio there, in which you had the reporter saying to Joe Biden, "Hey, there's this book out, and a lot of Democrats are saying that you had some cognitive issues, some physical issues," and he's like, "You see me walking around the street," and then he says, "I can beat those two guys up." He's talking about Jake Tapper and the Axios reporter. The reporter just continues on like you didn't just have a former president of the United States saying that he could beat up two journalists. Now, I mean, it's not like scandalous or anything, but that is how low the bar. That is a sign of the expectations that have been set when it comes to Joe Biden, that he can be like, I can just kick both their butts. I could beat them both up, and it's something that a fifth grader on a playground might say, and it doesn't even seem abnormal to the reporter. Well, but do you have any thought? Well, now, of course, sure, but do you have any thoughts on what they had to say? We've got traffic coming up in a moment. Quick break as well. I'm Nick Reed. Father's Day coming up before you know it, and I'll use that opportunity to give you a chance to win a day of golf at the most beautiful course in the Ozarks. You register to win a round of golf for Dad and 3 of his friends at one of the Big Cedar golf courses. You can do that at ksgf.com.
Springfield's Talk 104.1, the First Alert forecast from Ozarks First meteorologist Tom Schmidt, sponsored by Wolfpack Cleaners, your residential and commercial cleaning professionals. Today we'll see sunny skies throughout the day with a high near 86. Tonight mostly clear with a low around 68. For your Tuesday, a 40% chance of showers and thunderstorms, otherwise partly sunny with a high near 85. And looking ahead to Wednesday, we'll see a 70% chance of showers with a high near 76.
When Biden was asked on Friday about the renewed questions and allegations, even from Democrats, about his cognitive and physical decline, and he saw, and whether or not he felt he should have dropped out earlier, which he was forced out. The media is so insistent on rewriting history. They keep talking, when you dropped out. He was forced out. But that aside, and his response was, well, why didn't they run against me? Well, they tried to. You had that Democrat congressman who ran, but the party just wedged him out. You had RFK Jr. running as a Democrat. Democrats, Cornel West, Jill Stein, and the Democrat Party went to every state these people were on the ballot and tried to get them thrown off. And in some cases, they were successful in doing so. They forced New Hampshire and Iowa to move their caucus and primaries so that South Carolina could be first, knowing that that state was going to be a big win for Biden. They weren't afraid that Biden was going to lose Iowa or New Hampshire, but if he only got 60% of the vote in the primary running for re-election, they knew that that wouldn't look good and that could really cause donors to have some grave concern and add momentum to RFK Jr. or Jill Stein or Cornel West or that other Democrat, whatever his name is. And so they rearranged the entire election process in order to make sure that the people running against Biden had less of a chance to win. I mean, it was rigging the game. So when Biden asked the question, why didn't they run against me? They tried. Now, even if the Democrats had not rigged the game, we don't know. I mean, it would have been historic for someone else to beat Joe Biden. And the cover-up was still in full swing at that point regarding his cognitive health issues. So in all likelihood, he still would have won legitimately. But I bet if you ask him the name, just to name one person who went out, got signatures to run against him in a caucus or a primary as a Democrat, he probably couldn't even tell you a single one. Tim Walsh over the weekend. Here's another gift that keeps on giving. He was speaking at an event during the South Carolina Democratic Party state convention. And he is part of the chorus that claims the problem with Democrats is that they haven't been nasty enough, that they've just played too nice. They haven't name-called enough. They haven't gotten people to really fully understand yet how dangerous Donald Trump and Republicans are, and so that they need to fight harder and really bully the blank out of Donald Trump.
Called out on this because I called Donald Trump a wannabe dictator. It's because he is. It's because he is. Oh, the governor's being mean and the governor's speaking out on that. Well, maybe it's time for us to be a little meaner. Maybe it's time for us to be a little more fierce. Because we have to ferociously push back on this. And again, I'll speak to my teacher colleagues in here. The thing that bothers a teacher more than anything is to watch a bully, to watch this bully and to stop it. And when it's a child, you talk to them and you tell them why bullying's wrong. But when it's adult like Donald Trump, you bully the shit out of him back. You push back. You make sure they know it's not there.
So apparently, in the perspective of Tim Walz, trying to imprison Donald Trump isn't enough. Trying to drain him of all of his financial resources by filing lawsuit after lawsuit isn't enough. Hyping up the sort of rhetoric that leaves us with a president who was actually shot at a campaign rally and then an attempt to take him out again when he is golfing. You see why it is that this is the normalization of violence coming from the Democrat Party, arguing that this is virtuous. And that what has been done up to this point to Donald Trump by his opposition, whether that is attempting to imprison him, trying to overthrow his first presidency, or shooting him. Tim Walz is declaring that they just haven't done enough. We need to do more. We're letting them off easy. And then we're shocked when followers of people like Tim Walz think that it is not only okay, but somehow they're doing something to save the country by killing political opposition, beating up political opposition, going after supporters of political opposition. It's projection clearly, but in real terms, these are the dangerous people. They are inspiring people to try and murder, and in some cases to do so. This culture of violence that the Democrats continue to cultivate, again, isn't just political. This is why you've got, on trial right now, an individual try to take out a CEO of a healthcare company, because that's how you solve problems if you're on the left. You think about this environment right now, the increased targeting of people, and you have Democrats that are out there encouraging people to do it more? And and he tries bizarrely to use kids like, well, now we tell kids not to bully, but when it comes to being an adult, well, there's a fine message. And then they all applaud. This was they can no longer say, well, now that doesn't represent the average Democrat. This was the Democratic convention in South Carolina on Friday or Saturday, one of the 2 days. And this was the vice presidential candidate to be president of the United States. And given the environment we're in and the fact that Trump has already been shot once, we can go down the list of the Republican softball players with the Bernie Sanders supporter trying to kill them, Kavanaugh after the threats by Senator Schumer being targeted by a left-wing extremist. And in this environment, and then the anti-Semitism problem we saw just 2 weeks ago, or last week, 2 Jewish individuals targeted and killed. Then just yesterday, there are a number of them more targeted and killed. And in that environment, you still have people like Tim Walz at a convention openly saying we need to bully these people more, or Trump specifically. And then acting like he's the one that is a danger. Once again, though, also, the fact that Tim Walz is able to call Donald Trump a dictator proves Donald Trump is not a dictator. This would be a fun little test for these people who want to claim Donald Trump is a dictator. Go to North Korea and openly, at a rally, start saying things like that about Kim Jong-un and see what happens. Because that's what happens in a dictatorship. And we'll see if it's the same thing that happens here in the United States of America. You think of it just from a humanitarian standpoint, the horrific nightmare that people live on a daily basis in North Korea being one example, and to dare compare what these people in death camps go through in a country like North Korea to what happens here in this country under Donald Trump, that is just pathetic. And it's dangerous. And I guess we should just give up on the idea that Democrats are going to do anything other than try to continue to inspire people to kill political opposition, people to kill Jewish people, people to kill Donald Trump or the heads of companies that they disagree with. Because it seems as if every time there is another fruit of their labor, they step it up. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Sarah Myers, everyone.
Thank you, Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. I finally did it. I
that's right.
Yeah, I upgraded my HVAC on Friday with the Foreman team. My units, they were 28 years old, and let me tell you, I've only had my AC and my furnace. I've just used my AC, but just for the couple of days, I can already tell just a huge difference. And the Foreman team, they were just incredible to work with. In fact, we kind of had a bigger job, if you will, because I wanted to move where my AC unit was going to set. And so they completely relocated it to the other side of the house, and they were like, nope, no big deal, we can do this, we do it all the time. And honestly, they were just a dream to work with. So if you are out there and you are ready to upgrade your HVAC, please remember Foreman Mechanical Heating and Air. Now you can find all of the contact information for Russell and his team under the Sarah's Endorsements tab at ksgf.com.
There was this massively successful attack launched by Ukraine against Russia that is already, I saw in one reporting comparing it to essentially being Russia's Pearl Harbor. Though Pearl Harbor, the comparison obviously isn't in motivation. The United States did not do anything to provoke it in the capacity that clearly Putin has taken on behavior that provoked it, but just in terms of the impact that it has on their infrastructure, military infrastructure. And these forces, they launched, the Ukrainian Special Force operatives launched simultaneous attacks on 4 Russian strategic bomber bases and the home port of the Russian Northern Fleet early yesterday. The attack was reportedly a year and a half in the making and involved a novel means of delivery and the first use of autonomous drone swarms. There were, again, 4 different bases that were hit. The air bases were the home to Russia's fleet of Tu-22, Tu-95M, and Tu-160 nuclear-capable strategic bombers, as well as AS-50 battle management aircraft. They were located from the Siberian Far East to the Arctic Circle. The furthest target, the Belaya Air Base, is over 2,700 miles from Ukraine, so we're not talking about simply over the border. By any standard, it's noted this is a devastating attack. Nearly half of the Tu-22, a quarter of the Tu-95MS, and a third of the Tu-160 fleet, representing just over 30% of Russia's strategic bombing forces, were damaged or destroyed in the one attack. When you consider the operational readiness rate, Russia probably has less than 50 aircraft now capable of flying. The Tu-22 and the Tu-95MS production lines are closed, and the Tu-160 production is 1 per year. That is the production rate, just 1 per year. For all intents and purposes, this represents a permanent decrease in the size of the Russian strategic bomber fleet. And this is something that has, to a degree, in certain areas throughout Russia, you've got local authorities confirming these hits. There doesn't appear to be any sort of denial here. At the same time, I believe it's today or tomorrow, that it is today. Ukrainian and Russian negotiators were slated to meet in Istanbul. Now, what that is going to look like, obviously, is going to be much different than it would have prior to such a successful attack, reaching not only so far into Russia, but at the same time having such a dramatic impact on Russia's military assets. And if Europe at this point would stop funding both sides of this thing, that could make a tremendous difference. This is part of the problem and one of the struggles that the Trump administration has had to deal with, while the Trump administration has been attempting to cut off financial streams to Putin. You've had the Europeans that have been circumventing or even just directly purchasing energy from Russia, which has helped fund this war machine. Which, of course, flies in the face of the conventional wisdom, which is, that, NATO is really leading this thing, and Trump is the one that is somehow playing patty cake with Putin, when in actual meaningful steps, Trump is the one who has been trying to cut off the financial abilities of Putin to continue this thing, while the European Union has been continuing to fund it by lifting sanctions. But a much different atmosphere clearly is going to be hovering over these talks that are slated to take place in Istanbul. If they even do at this point, you could have the Russians just decide to not show up altogether, but time will tell on that. Springfield's Talk 104.1, I'm Nick Reed. Ozarks Elder Law with the ladies in white, Lori Rook, should be your absolute go-to when it makes sure, when it comes to making sure that you have the planning for passing on, whether it is your parents, your grandparents, yourself. These are things that if you do not prepare for, I think a lot of times there are assumptions made. Like, well, I'm the last living relative, and so I automatically get to make those decisions. That is not how it works. You don't have a locked-in plan in place with legal experts. Government's going to decide where the stuff goes. Or when it comes to medical power of attorney, when it comes to death, and I'm last living relative, so I'm going to get the house. No. I mean, if the government decides, no medical power of attorney laid out, but I'm the last living relative, so it'll default to me. Nope. Government's going to make those medical decisions for you. Your own spouse, your kids will be left helpless and frustrated as government makes those decisions. It is a free consultation to find out what you need to do in order to make sure that horrific burden during a grief-stricken time is not passed on to the people you love the most. And then after that consultation, they will tell you, here's what the cost will be. There's no hourly rate. There's no open-ended billing that occurs. And that's after, again, your free consultation. OzarksElderLaw.com, also at KSGF.com. Under Nick's endorsements, you can find the contact information there as well. Two girls who competed at the Oregon Track and Field State Championship refused to stand on the medal podium alongside a biological male that was allowed to compete against them. Good. Alexa Anderson of Teagard High School and Reese Eckert of Sherwood High School, both seniors, stepped down from the medal podium for a long jump in protest of trans-identifying athletes' participation. Quote, "We did not refuse to stand on the platform out of hate. We did it because someone has to say this isn't right. In order to protect the integrity and fairness of girls' sports, we must stand up for what is right." Now, these are the true fighters for equal rights and civil rights of our time. You know, for a long while in this country, in reality, we were doing pretty good when it came to this stuff. Now, you had the left running around talking about all these myths of, well, you know, a woman that does the same job as a man only gets 77 cents for a dollar, which, of course, it wasn't actually factually true. But they would run around creating these fake scenarios to pretend as if they were somehow the great defenders of, in this case, female rights. But in reality, everybody was kind of doing pretty good. We have, however, gotten to the point, for some of us really, for the first time in our lifetime, seeing true institutional bigotry, true institutional systems set in place that put one group above another, and that is this insanity over allowing men to call the shots when it comes to showers, bathrooms, and competitions with girls. And as much as so many people out there, it's interesting at the same time the whole pride deal is going on and the presentation of a group of people that have really had to fight so hard and how we, you know, at the same time you have girls that actually are being discriminated against, girls that are actually being told if you don't want to compete against a man, there's something wrong with you. You're a hater. Shut your mouth. And to see girls fight back on this, I think that it's it's unfortunate that it has to happen. But in a day and age of virtue signalers, people who want to believe that they're somehow fighting against some sort of injustice, yet they aren't. But then here we do see this actually happening, and it's sad that in 2025 that we are in this place. But I think that we should definitely hold up and support the girls that are fighting back. Glenn Beck's next. I'm Nick Reed.